In today's video, I'll be progressing / reviewing the trail Gannonball at the Summit Ridge Trail System in Black Diamond, Washington. I haven't made a progression video in a very long time, so if you're new, check out my other ones I've done at Duthie. I'll link them in the description. This trail contains massive gap jumps with small case pads and also has varying difficulties of jumps. This whole line took me about 2.5 hours to complete, mainly over the course of one day. I did hit the first one on another day, but I mainly progressed within that one day. As a quick note before we start though, I won't be reviewing the first hip jump or the final step down because I didn't really get any footage from either of those. To get to Gannonball from the Black Diamond open space parking lot, you go straight back on the fire road for a bit, then you come across a sign welcoming you to Summit Ridge. Here, you go left a ways and you will eventually come across another fork in the road. The sign points you in the directions for cross-country and freeride, and obviously, you want freeride. After this, there's a short walk-up that travels right along the side of the trail so you can scope out these massive doubles. The start of this trail also has the mountain biker's responsibility code, and I encourage you to read it if it's your first time here. First, you have a hip jump that I usually go around because I'm just not a fan of it. Next, you have a berm with some roots and a lot of setup time into your second jump. You don't need to pedal into it as long as you pump the roller before it well. This jump didn't really scare me at all because I was familiar with similar sized gaps on trails like Double Trouble at Duthie. The gap size can't be more than 10 feet, and when I did it for my first time, I landed perfectly and the lip felt like butter. Once you land this, you go no pedaling into the next jump. This one's a little bigger, maybe at around 12 feet. Coming in with all that speed from the previous jump, you need to brake a slight amount to land this perfectly. I overshot it on my first few times hitting it, and it just took me some getting used to. The first few times, I also tail dived so I couldn't gauge speed for the following jump. These first two are great for progressing, and they're by far the smallest jumps on the trail, making them the easiest. Right after these mellow jumps, you go into a huge booter with a gap size of about 20 feet. This lip is very steep compared to the other jumps so far, and it's comparable to being shot into the stratosphere. A warning for the first timers though, brake, a lot. I learned this the hard way, and my abilities on this jump were very inconsistent. The first time I tried it, I almost landed flat, and I nosedived hard, almost positive I was going to get bucked over the bars. One thing is for certain though, if you crash, the jumps are extremely high consequence, so remember to control yourself. This jump took me only a few run-ups to do, and this might be the only feature I didn't feel like I perfected by the end of the day. At random times, I kept overshooting, but when I got it right, it felt amazing. This fourth jump is also a small hip jump, so you either need to know how to whip, or you need to turn before the lip. I love the smoothness of the jump when you get it right, and it's so fun to practice style and whips on. This jump is very unique for the trail because the lip is very steep for its size, and you definitely get thrown higher than the other jumps. After you land the booter, you go into the fifth jump, which manages to be a hip and a transfer. The lip is angled right and turns right, but the sketchy thing is the tree right off to the side of the lip. If you stay where the majority of the tire marks are though, you'll be perfectly set up. The lip is very smooth and also flat, so don't worry about nosediving or tail diving. The landing for this fifth jump is turned to the left, making the jump a right hip left transfer. This feature is also very wide with its lip and landing, so don't even worry about falling off the side of the lip. This jump actually did intimidate me a little bit because I've never done such a huge jump at such a high speed. Every time I rode this, I launched right off the middle and went straight, landing on the far side of the landing. This jump is meant for people to land in the middle, and the far side's a bit larger of a gap. This means that on the majority of my runs, I kept on casing it, but luckily, there's a fairly big case guard. The landing is also nice and long, so you do have lots of breathing room when coming in for a landing. One note before we move on though, don't even attempt to hit this if you overshoot the previous jump. For ideal speed, land the third jump as best as you can and pedal once into this. After you land the fifth jump, you have tons of setup time until your last major jump, which is by far the most intimidating. For your approach, you have about 6 seconds of time once you land the fifth with a roller right in the middle. To hit this jump perfectly, it's best to be in your hardest gear and pedal once before the roller. Once you do this, you want to pump like you never have before. By now, you're going faster than you may ever have gone on a mountain bike, and that's how you know you have enough speed. I was doing quite a lot of run-ups because the gap was easily 35 to 40 feet, and coming up short is not an option. here's me for reference. As you can see, this thing is enormous. The lip looks steeper than it felt too, and I was scared because I didn't want to go high. I just wanted the distance. You can also see that this lip is shifted to the right from the landing, but taking off in the middle still gives you a great landing. Just make sure not to take off on the right because you don't even want to have a landing there. This lip is also very wide and so is the landing, but be careful where you launch from because crashing would not be fun. The case guard also has to be huge with a jump of this magnitude, and it's about 3 feet. I was casing this jump my first few times, and the case pad definitely prevented injury. This was my first time doing it.
Oh my god! Oh my god, I just did that. Oh, I feel so good now. Oh, let's go.
So I had finally linked up everything I wanted to do for today, and I was on a whole new level of stoke. These jumps are all just so smooth and well built, and I had an amazing time progressing on them. That's why this trail is getting the first ever 10 out of 10 on my channel. These jumps are the biggest in Washington, and they're the biggest gaps I've certainly ever ridden. They just all work when they're put together, and the trail's a blast to session. I learned a lot of new skills from progressing on Gannonball Run, and I definitely want to come back to Summit Ridge and ride these again. Before we go, I'll show you everything I progressed on from my first person on my GoPro. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.